Thank you so much. I'm Christine Dierk. This is Molly Nicholas. And as mentioned, we're presenting AlterWear. This is work that we did at the University of California, Berkeley, as part of the Hybrid Ecologies Lab, working with Professor Eric Paulos. So the number of commercial wearable devices is constantly expanding and diversifying. These devices improve our lives in many different ways, but they feature some notable drawbacks. So these devices are very screen-centric and function more as discrete devices than as part of the body. These devices must be removed for certain activities such as swimming, showering, or sleeping, and require charging on a weekly or even daily basis. Wearable devices require programming and frequent software updates, and default to disruptive, intrusive notifications. In addition, many devices try to encompass all possible functionalities and prove redundant when worn with other devices. So new technologies have begun to move past rectilinear screens and are becoming more integrated with the body. This new wave of wearable technology includes tattoos, fingernails, and hair. So this is a project that we presented last month at TEI. This project used shape memory alloy to enable shape-changing hair, thermochromic pigments to enable color-changing hair, and we also implemented hair as a capacitive touch input. So wearables have also started to take the form of smart textiles. However, we imagine wearables going a step further. So imagine, you're catching up with an old friend when they invite you to a themed party that night. At home, looking through your closet, you realize that you don't own anything remotely appropriate for the Hawaiian luau theme. Luckily, you remember that your favorite polka-dotted shirt is dynamically updatable. You quickly update it with a Hawaiian floral design that you found online and head out to the party. Once you're there, you run into your friend John, who offers to sketch one of his famous goofy parrots to add to your shirt. After the party, you stop by your favorite burrito joint on the way home. Feeling mighty conspicuous in this new context, you discreetly update your shirt back to your favorite polka-dotted design. We present AlterWear as working towards this vision. So AlterWear combines NFC and e-ink displays and can be incorporated into a wide landscape of form factors. AlterWear is seamlessly integrated into clothing and accessories rather than a discrete wearable device. AlterWear does not need to be removed at any point. AlterWear never needs to be charged or programmed and never requires software updates. Additionally, AlterWear utilizes pull notifications over distracting and intrusive ones. And finally, AlterWear intentionally limits functionality to reduce the amount of responsibility that's placed on the user. So the basic interaction looks like this. You pick a design on your mobile device, hold your device up to the display, and wait between 2 and 4 seconds for the wearable display to update. Once the display has updated, you can put your phone away and wear the design throughout your day-to-day activities. So here's a short video of what this looks like. The user picks a design on their phone and then holds the phone up to the display in order to update it. Once the display has updated, the user removes their phone and thus removes all power from the wearable display. However, this display persists without power. The user can then update this display as frequently or as infrequently as they desire, and it'll maintain for months. There's a lot of work on dynamic clothing and also a lot of work on situated e-ink displays. I'd like to briefly touch on 2 related works. So Ebb used thermochromic pigments to enable color-changing fabrics as an alternative to screen-based wearables. And researchers at Microsoft combined e-ink displays with photovoltaics to implement low-power situated displays. We were inspired by both of these works through our implementation of wearable dynamic e-ink displays. So in terms of technical details, we have our NFC tag with attached coil. We also have a microcontroller, and then the e-ink display itself. So these are the core components of AlterWear. When you bring an NFC-enabled device into range of the NFC coil, both data and energy are transferred from the device to AlterWear, and then the e-ink display can be updated. So these components can also be implemented at very small scale. This is a custom PCB that we designed and fabricated. AlterWear affords several unique interaction modalities. These interaction modalities are dictated by the location of the coil with respect to the e-ink display. So for direct tagging, the e-ink display and inductive coil are co-located. The user tags the display directly in order to update it. This is the interaction modality that we saw in the previous video. For disjointed tagging, the e-ink display and inductive coil are isolated in separate locations. The user tags one location of the body to update a display on another. If the coil is near a reliable power source, the display can cycle through a series of images to create an animation. For these displays, the coil is located in places that are frequently in contact with NFC, such as the inside of a pocket or a bag. While the previous modes of interaction utilized NFC-enabled smartphones, Internet of Things devices and public infrastructure can similarly update the display. These are situated updates. Finally, NFC is able to transmit both power and data through fabric and other thin materials. We can leverage this property to enable obscured updates where users do not need to take their phone out of their pocket or other bag, backpack, and can update the display through those obstructions. We created 6 prototypes to illustrate these interaction modalities. First, we designed and prototyped 2 hat prototypes. We chose this form factor because hats are frequently used to express interests and contextual cues, such as sporting teams and events. For the first prototype, we added an e-ink display to the front panel of the hat and a coil to the back of the hat. For the second prototype, we laser cut 3 star-shaped openings into the side panel of the hat and attached an e-ink display behind them. This display is more subtle and shows that Alta Wear can be more abstract. The coil is also located at the back of the hat. We also created a shirt prototype. It's a modified pocket tee. We chose this form factor because t-shirts are culturally accepted as a form of expression, and it's fairly common to see logos, designs, text, and other visual cues displayed across them. So the e-ink display and coil are both located in the pocket, which enables animated displays. If the phone is carried in the pocket, the display can be continuously powered and animated. We also fabricated 2 shoe prototypes. For the first shoe prototype, we embedded both the e-ink display and the coil in the vamp of the shoe. We chose this location because the vamp is a popular place for sneaker adornment, such as Sharpie inscriptions and other doodles. Designs here reference this existing practice of decoration for a more social and purposefully performative display. For the second shoe prototype, we embedded the e-ink display and coil on the inside of the ankle. This slightly hidden location is a good fit for functional or private designs. As the logo is already a busy part of the shoe, designs here are discreet. Our final prototype is in the form of a false fingernail. We fabricated this wearable to demonstrate that the hardware can be implemented at a very small scale and can also be applied to cosmetic factors. The coil is etched into the backside of the PCB directly under the e-ink display. Since the electronics of Alta Wear never need to be accessible for charging or programming, Alta Wear can be fully encapsulated in waterproof enclosures. To demonstrate this, we completely enclosed our fingernail prototype in clear resin, and we also immersed it in water. So these devices can be waterproofed and also able to go through washing machines and inclement weather. And now Molly's going to tell us about the user study.
Thanks. So we performed a user study to probe reactions to our devices. We recruited 13 participants to provide qualitative feedback to our designs, and we did a semi-structured interview to gather their thoughts on the proposed interactions and applications. We had 7 participants identified as female and 6 identified as male. The average age was 24. 11 of our participants self-reported as currently owning a wearable and using it frequently. The remaining 2 indicated that they had previously regularly used a wearable and no longer did, so their opinions were also informed by experience using wearable interfaces. I'm not going to report a subset of our findings. For more details, you can look at our paper. 10 of our 13 participants vehemently complained about receiving notifications on their wearables or other devices. As one user said, with the current way wearables are working, they're adding more distractions to your life rather than getting rid of distractions. In contrast, the pull notification structure of Alta Wear was more appealing. 5 users with high levels of experience using common wearables such as smartwatches, activity trackers like Fitbit, and so on, conceptualized these devices as needing care and support from their owners and described them in agentic terms. 5 users specifically identified the frustration involved in maintaining batteries as a reason for not wanting to use a new wearable device. That's including those 2 before that had previously used wearables and no longer did. Batteries was a big part of why they chose not to. In contrast, the purposefully limited functionality of AlterWear appealed to our participants. They responded positively to the idea that they would not have to worry about programming the devices, installing updates, syncing with additional devices, or removing to charge. As one user said, "Anything that requires less input from me, that means less engagement with the gadget from my side, I'd always prefer that." The interactions we've described so far have been of a person updating their own clothing, but you could also update someone else's in a more kind of social interaction. We asked participants how they felt about the tagging gesture and what amount of access control they would like for their dynamic clothing. Participants were extremely not interested in having others control what was on their display. But half of the participants felt that the required physical interaction of that tagging gesture to update the display naturally resolved issues of privacy and consent. If you're close enough to friends to physically touch, then you're close enough to update each other's designs. One participant even felt that the required contact would encourage a more intimate connection. As she said, "It would be a good way to connect with people. You could touch the phone and their clothing together and have a bond." The notion that wearables are meant to be functional and to track, notify, or otherwise inform was very strong with 10 of our users. 3 participants even thought that tracking or sensor data of some kind was part of the definition of a wearable device. A device that was designed to help express style was a novel idea to these users. One participant was very excited about the idea of using AlterWear as a way to testing out and iterating on her graphic designs. She envisioned updating the display throughout the day with fresh designs to get reactions and feedback. Now I'm going to share some scenarios that we envisioned to sort of ground our discussion in more specifics. Walter Ware is meeting his daughter Sal for lunch. He arrives early, so he sits down, crosses his ankle over his knee, and tags his shoe display to check his current step count. He's grateful for the information, but happy that he doesn't need to open an app to see it, and glad the display will subtly blend in with the design of his shoe. When Sal arrives, Walter tags the vamp of Sal's sneaker, and an 8-bit heart he's designed appears. The next morning, Walter is touched to see that she hasn't changed the display, and it reminds him of the lovely conversation they shared the day before. Sal is studying in the school library with headphones on. She feels her friend tap her gently on the shoulder and smiles quickly before returning to her studies. Later, she notices that her jacket lapel has updated with a bunny emoji from her friend, who knows where her secret update coil is. Walter and his family love to attend sporting events, but they each prefer a different sport. Last week, Walter and his daughter enjoyed a hockey game. Today, Walter is going to a basketball game with his son. As they walk into the stadium, Walter presses the back of his favorite baseball hat to a particular section of the turnstile, and the display updates from the logo of the hockey team to show the logo for his home team. This weekend, Walter will update the display to show a custom design he made in support of his daughter's softball team. He's relieved he doesn't need to own more than one baseball hat, but can still easily update the display so it's appropriate to the changing context. Since it never needs to be changed or programmed, AlterWear could endure many trips through the washing machine, adventures through inclement weather, changes in trends, hand-me-downs through siblings and friends, eventual abandonment at a donation site or thrift shop, and new life through repurchase. We imagine a future where clothing and accessories could take on a life of their own through multiple owners and through various interactions and uses. Thank you for your time, and now we'll accept questions.
Yang Zhang from CMU. Great talk. I really love the future that you painted. If you have a smart clothes like that, I don't mind wearing it every day, actually. So I have a question. You use the like ink display, and it seems to me a very rigid. Do you have any insight how to make it flexible in future?
So they do make and manufacture flexible ink displays. A lot of them aren't quite commercially available yet. So it wasn't necessarily in the scope of this project to use those displays, but we definitely imagine future iterations of this project as well as future textiles using these displays. They've also started manufacturing ink displays that have color as well as black and white and are in different forms as opposed to just the rigid rectangular shape.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Jordan Pollock from Carleton. I was wondering what you see as a vision for scaling this up, because I know in the beginning you showed like full on, like the whole shirt changes. But I mean, that to me seems like maybe a bit much. But what do you see as like the steps towards getting up to that point?
At this point in time, we kind of imagine that even if a small portion of your clothing or your accessories is changing, it still, in a way, renders the entire piece dynamic. But we also imagine small sections. For instance, maybe you have a stripe down your sleeve, and it's still a very thin ink display, but it still feels like a more cohesive change throughout the garment as opposed to in one location. And you could also have other ones of these small displays that can kind of change in concert. So maybe the front of your shirt changes at the same time as the back of your shirt. But we do imagine steps in that direction, and hopefully one day there will be a material that will allow for the entire garment as a whole to change.